Morning, Western the World. It's Thursday, December the 4th, and this morning our central lecture theme was the topic of global decolonization. This lecture built in many ways on prior discussions that we have had. Bear in mind, chiefly, of course, the lecture from before the last exam on the expansion of global imperialism by Western powers and the rationalizations that lay behind it, particularly in terms of its emphasis on racial difference and exploiting economic resources. It also, of course, is tied to the transformative effects of World War II, both in the ways in which World War II is used as a war that is justified on the basis of the evils of fascism, that the problems of fascism in its denial of democratic opportunity and in its sort of treatment of certain peoples as inherently inferior. And that language, as it's spelled out in the Atlantic Charter and in other declarations by the United States and Great Britain and other Western powers, comes to be seen as sort of hypocritical in light of especially the British and the French empires, globally speaking. But also, of course, the change in the geopolitical climate that's created by the Cold War, the emergence of two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, both of whom that are at least nominally committed to an anti-imperialist course of action. These phenomena are similarly important in understanding what happens. In our lecture today, we focused on two general categories within which this process of decolonization took place. One of them was an emphasis on the sort of the violent processes that brought about decolonization, and we looked at three examples. The emergence of the modern state of Israel in Palestine, the case of Algeria and the problem that it had with its colon, or settlers, and then lastly, the Cold War dynamics that play out in Vietnam and its struggle for independence. And you'll want to make sure that you sort of understand all three of those different scenarios and what they represent in terms of this movement for decolonization and their sort of long-lasting legacies. But then we also had another category of decolonization, which was sort of the negotiated camp, that is characterized less extensively by violence. We can't say that it's free of it, but that this applied to places like Gandhi's India, Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana, and some of the aspirations that are represented in these processes that depend more on peaceful protest, mass mobilization of resistance to call for independence, self-determination on the part of the states. Understanding these sorts of case studies then helped us turn our attention to trying to assess the big picture, the legacies of colonialism as a whole. And here you want to be able to sort of apply these legacies to those particular cases. But the problems that we identified were, of course, issues such as one-party rule, that the parties that lead independence movements tend to consolidate power tightly into their own hands and then become eventually sort of obsessed with the maintenance of that power rather than building the state. Secondly, the vulnerable economies, and here we use the case study of Zambia. Economies built by colonial states meant to export goods, unable to sustain themselves or diversify themselves very easily. Lastly, or thirdly, was the problem of sort of reinforced internal divisions. Providence helped us think a little bit about the case of Rwanda and the conflict that emerged there between Hutu and Tutsi that climaxed in the genocide of 1994, but that we said was a deep-rooted problem in that society created by colonial emphasis on difference, and difference as a result of sort of racial, biological qualities and characteristics. And then we sort of wrapped up with this idea of neo-colonialism, the idea that somehow there is this ongoing legacy of dependence, that political independence does not equal sort of true autonomy or anything like a sort of equal position in the world. And as we turn our attention in our final week of class to trying to sort of assess more recent events, we'll begin to see a little more just how profound some of those struggles have been. Look forward to talking more with you about that next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you on Tuesday.